Ladies and gentlemen, it is round 7 of the US Chess Championships, and we have a clash of the titans, Fabiano Caruana and Hans Niemann. If someone wins, they are going to the top of the leaderboard. Whoever loses is going to really struggle. Since we last checked in, both of these players have gone on to record victories, including Hans Niemann getting a victory over Amanbaidu Misha, whose streak is now over. And we will talk about that in a few days' time. But it is round 7. It is for the US Chess Championship. There are only 11 rounds, 4 left after this. We have round 8 tonight, I suppose, depending where you are. And we have a rest day, and then the final 3 rounds, rounds 9, 10, and 11. So this is very, very important. Both players come into this on 4 points out of 6, performing very, very well. We have e4 from Hans Niemann, e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and this is what Hans Niemann plays. He plays the Italian. He is an expert in the Italian game. We get d6, which is an interesting move from Fabiano Caruana. Typically against the Italian, you get the knight coming out, the bishop coming out, or at least the bishop to e7. d6 is not a move you see often at the top level. We get c3, which is very principled, but now we see Fabio's plan f5. White's advantage is about 0.5, but this is such an interesting way to play against the Italian. d3 solidifies the center. Queen f6. When was the last time you saw a grandmaster play queen f6 on move 5? Short castles from Hans Niemann is a mistake on move 6 and now f4. And Fabiano Caruana after 6 moves is just better. And look at that. Hans has had to spend already some time. b4 is played. It's a typical Italian move, but knight ge7. a4. Hans, yes, this is what you normally do in the Italian, but you're forgetting that Fabio's just attacking you. You have castled, he has not, and he is breaking through here to your castled king, which you put there already. So b5 kicks the knight back to d8, d4, but look at that, g4. I hit the knight. Where's the knight going? Knight goes back to e1, h5. Look at Fabiano Caruana, what he's done here. Look at this. He's just attacking. He's got this bishop supporting. He's got these knights ready to jump in and help out. He's got his rook on the way. He's obviously got his queen on f6. Incredible. And Hans's pieces are all stuck on the back rank. He's got one bishop out, which has like no targets except to prevent the rook from going to g8 at the moment. But even then, it might get traded. So we have knight to a3, knight to e6. Maybe not the most accurate moves. The engine prefers you just to play bishop to e6 to invite this trade. Because you kind of maybe want to get rid of this bishop. It's a really strong asset for Hans. And obviously if you trade, this is just worse for white. It's much better for black. But even if you don't trade and you play something like a5, for example, this is probably still okay for black to trade like this and then to play 96. This is probably still fine. Oh, no, it gives Hans back some advantage. But yeah, knight a3, knight to e6, b6, just c6. Bishop drops back, and now knight to g5, and the attack continues. And knight to d3 is the first of 3 consecutive mistakes from Hans Niemann. First he plays knight to d3, which allows Fabiano Caruana to play knight to g6. Now the best move is b takes a7. That's the best move. Hans plays knight to c4. And now Fabiano Caruana is completely winning if he plays a5, which is a really random move, but you leave that pawn with no way to take. He doesn't. He plays bishop to e6. But now Hans must play b takes a7. Why? Because this becomes a weakness. The rook kind of has to stay there because you can't castle, so it has to stay there, and it's a threat of promotion. And if the rook takes, it's a waste of time. But he plays bishop to a3. 3 consecutive mistakes. And now Fabiano Caruana. B takes c4, b takes c4, and g3, or f3 rather. g3 is what's played. h4. Your king is a huge problem. I am opening everything up, and you are just going to lose. You can't create enough defense. Queen c2, a takes b6. Look at that. Despite all of this going on the king side, Fabi still has time to do this and get rid of Hans's one strength. Rook ae1 is trying to hold on. Rook d8. Now I can move the rook because you no longer have this and threats of promotion. d5, you have to do something. Rook slides over. Look at that. Look at that maneuver. Oh, bother. We take, and now look at that. Bishop drops back. You've got to start chopping things, probably, and trying not to get mated. Rook dh7. Uh-oh. We take, and the queen takes. Now what? Queen, there we go. We're getting counterplay. We're in. We're going to get in. We're going to create something. H takes g3. Takes. Queen slides over. Mate in 6. Check. And king e7 wins the game for Fabiano Caruana. Because his king will escape. Down here, probably. You only have a few more checks. So like queen c7. And then king f6. And then you have to sack the queen. Queen d8 would be a last try, but then the bishop would block. And you're just getting mated. Multiple different ways. Actually, this probably doesn't lead to mate. But it's still mate. And 28 moves it took for Fabiano Caruana to destroy, absolutely rinse, embarrass Hans Niemann. Hans is a fantastic Italian player. He plays the Italian game all the time. For him to lose in 28 moves is something unbelievable. But you know who else lost? It wasn't as short a game, but we have to talk about it. There will be I will put another video out about the streak. Amin Baidu Mishra. He lost to Hans Niemann. I think it was round 5. Now he's looking to restart his streak, to regain his confidence. He's playing against Sam Shankland. We get knight to f3, knight to f6. So ready. g3, and like just a straight up ready from Sam Shankland. Knight f3, g3, bishop g2, short castles. That's the ready for you. Knight d3, short castles, knight to c3, and the ready is always an interesting opening for me to look at because it's very maneuvering. It is very maneuvering. Obviously, we get an early queen trade, 13 moves. But you don't always fight for the center. Obviously, now we do have these 2 central pawns, which is actually probably, if white could remove this, it would probably be a blessing because then you would open up the bishop. But it can be very symmetrical depending on the way black plays it. Black here hasn't gone for the fianchettoed bishop, but we've still got the same pawn structure, so it's going to be a real fight and a real test. So we kick out the bishop, we play bishop to b2, and now we've got double fianchettoed bishops, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to look to apply pressure as white to the black position. So c6 is an interesting move. And now we have to play knight to d7. Otherwise, that pawn's hanging. So you have to defend it, knight to d7. But now f4 comes. E takes f4, g takes f4, not knight takes. You want to keep the pawns together. f5, and now look at that. We jump the knight into the center. You can take this, but I will grab the bishop. There is this pin that must be found, but now we can play this. Our knight's still perfectly fine, and look at that. Some sacrifices just seem to come out of nowhere. So I'm threatening to take the bishop, right? Which would then stop pinning the knight and allow me to take that bishop. If you take my bishop, then I just take knight, I grab on e6. And it's a problem, because your rook is hanging, and it is the defender of your knight. So you're going to have to do something. If you say play, it says rook e8 is the best move. But now I can probably play knight to c7, which is just a fork. And I'll be picking up the rook and most probably the knight, and it's just bust. So bishop to a3, such a beautiful move. We get king to f7 to protect the bishop, but I just take. Knight takes, And now I can play king to f2. And white, despite playing the most beautiful bishop sacrifice you've ever seen, is still only slightly better. a5, but look at that. King runs to the center. So important in endgames to get king activity as both sides double the rooks. And we get king to e8. Look how well this knight is placed. This bishop is just dead. It's looking at these pawns, but it can't really take them. That knight can't take because of how well placed that knight is. This bishop, look at that. It's just putting pressure. It's been opened. White is always going to be slightly better in this endgame. They're going to have so much play. As we now do push, and we push everything, and taking the knight's the wrong move. Because we take, trade, and you can't trade rooks again. Because this endgame is just lost. Because I'm simply going to win this pawn. And yes, I have this one weakness. But I also can, at some points, wrap around. And I'm always threatening to take your entire pawn structure. So knight takes d4 is a mistake. The best move, and it's really hard to find this. It's the only holding move, is to take this. To take this, allows c takes b5. And then to play something like knight to c5 now. To defend that, and to just maybe reroute your knight to a better square. Not right there, because you would lose a pawn, but you take the point. Instead of that, obviously, we took the knight, and we got into this endgame where you have to now give up the open file. Taking is the wrong move. Obviously, sliding the king's better. It's a bit rushed, but look at that. Beautiful. All my pawns are on dark squares, except for this one. Everything you have valuable is frozen on a light square. Literally everything black owns. The pawns and the pieces are all on light squares. And so we maneuver, we target the weakness. There was a chance to win with e6. It's always hard to find, but king f7 falls into e6 check. And now look at my king coming in. And you can try and break on the queen side. It's not enough. It's not enough. I'm eventually win this check, and I will take the bishop as well. Beautiful, beautiful game from Sam Shankland, who finishes with an hour 30 on his clock. I'm Mabaidu Mishra 21 minutes. And it was a poor decision in the end game, but when you start playing a bit poorly, it can happen. But ladies and gentlemen, there were so many decisive games. 5 out of 6 games were decisive. The only draw was Ray Robson versus Darius Shorts. The only draw was Ray Robson versus Levon Aronian, which got to a tied-up rook endgame. But there were so many decisive games. So Darius Shorts defeats Wanda Liang. Wesley So defeats Andy Woodward. We obviously saw Sam Shankland and Mabaidu Mishra, Hans Niemann and Fabiano Caruana. And then Sam Sevian defeats Grigory Oparin. To leave the standings as follows. Fabiano Caruana is tied for the lead with Wesley So on 5 points. They are a full point ahead of Levon, Aronian, and Hans Niemann. Half a point behind them are the Sam Shankland and Sam Sevian. Then there is 4 players, all on 3 points. Ray Robson, Grigory Oparin, Wanda Liang, Andy Woodward. And then 2 players at the bottom, Darius Shorts, Mabaidu Mishra, who's now lost 2 games, and his almost 70 game streak is over. The streak is over.